You can stay up here, Paul. Morning. Morning. As you know, we've been on a search for a priest for the congregation here. The vestry, and with the help of Canon Scott, the canon for the ordinary, and the search committee have found a priest and have called him. He is Deacon Nate, who some of you met on Maundy Thursday. He has been down here twice to pray with us, once with the vestry and the search committee, and then again with us on Maundy Thursday when Canon Scott did the service. We're signing a letter of agreement, calling him to the church. He has agreed to the letter, and his first Sunday will be the first Sunday in June. He's a young man. He has a wife and child, Judah, who's 9 years old. Very nice man. Anybody that's met him will attest to that. And we look forward to having him. But we have called the priest. He will start in June.
Well, good evening. It's good to see all of you here. Many of you, most of you, I have met. Some of you I have not. And I don't know what they've told you about me yet. Who knows? So I'll fill in some of the basics. But I'm a newly minted deacon as of, it feels like yesterday. It was really only 2.5 months ago. And I will, supposedly, they tell me, be ordained as a priest in June. June 20th in Milwaukee. And I've been serving for the last 2.5 years or so for the diocese as the young adult and campus minister in Milwaukee, which has me serving in a lot of different places. My hands are in a few pots: a parish on the east side, Marquette University, and a little bit at UW Milwaukee. But we are not originally from Milwaukee. I'm not from Wisconsin at all. We moved up almost 7 years ago, and I have to say, we really, really love being up here in Wisconsin and in Milwaukee. But I actually was born in October on a very snowy day, as my parents like to recall, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I am Canadian, yes. My accent does not betray me. I don't sound Canadian at all. My dad's parents are originally from the Winnipeg region of Canada. And they became ordained ministers with the Salvation Army, but they decided to do that in the United States. So where my dad was born, he was born down this way. But despite being born here in the United States, my parents, being Canadian was very important to my dad, his Canadian identity. So after my parents married, they decided to move back home for a bit, where I and one of my brothers was born. He was born in Toronto. And part of what it meant for my dad to be Canadian was that, many things. He would have the Canadian flag on a lot of stuff that he wore, a shirt, a hat, you name it. But one of the things that was very important to him was for my entire life, my dad has only ever had a Canadian passport. Which I always thought was kind of cool. Being someone, even though I was born in Canada, I've only ever had a United States passport. And so I thought it was kind of cool, this passport from a different country. But recently, as a dual citizen, he decided he wanted to get one from the United States also. And so in the process of going through the application and the paperwork and all that stuff, he came across this old Canadian passport when he was close to the age I am now. So just for fun, a couple of weeks ago, he took a photo of the passport and he sent it to our family group chat. And as you suspect, there were the expected jokes and comments about how similar we look, my dad and I. My middle brother simply replied, Nate, with like one of those thinking emojis, like I can't do it, but the eyebrow raised. My youngest brother said it looked like a 1950s noir detective version of me. But the real test was when I showed the photo to my son, who immediately said, without skipping a beat, "Is that you?" The resemblance, despite whether I embrace it or not, was irrefutable and undeniable. More than that, it was immediately recognizable. It took mere nanoseconds to clock who I belong to, that Jim is my dad, and that I'm his son. And on the night before Jesus was to be executed, as he's sitting at the table with his friends on their last night enjoying a meal, just one thing seems to be on Jesus' mind above all else: that they understand just how it will be recognizable who they belong to. And in order to accomplish this, it's utterly fascinating to me what Jesus does. Maybe more accurately, it's fascinating what he doesn't do here. Because in order to demonstrate and impress upon his disciples just the gravity and importance of all this, he doesn't say a single word. He simply gets up from the table, removes his outer robe, ties a towel around himself, and he takes some water and pours it into a basin and began washing his disciples' feet. He doesn't have to say anything. And the disciples seem to immediately understand what's going on. It's immediately recognizable, this love in action. But not only that, it's also almost, it seems, borderline offensive to some, which was why Peter, not being one to shy away from confrontation and opening up his mouth when maybe he shouldn't, interrupts Jesus in the middle of this sacred act. Because here's the thing about foot washing in Jesus' day. It was a normal part of first century life, a normal practice upon arriving at someone's home as a guest. If the house was wealthy, it would have been common for a servant to wash the guest's feet. If the household was not as wealthy, the guests would have washed their own feet. And it would have been typical for servants, if there was one, to wash their master's feet, or for students to wash their teacher's feet. All of that was normal. So when Peter objects to Jesus, he's not objecting to his feet being washed. He's objecting to his feet being washed by Jesus. He's objecting to Jesus taking on this nature and role of a servant. Jesus has taken a common cultural practice and completely flipped it on its head, inverting the power dynamics. Maybe Peter still hasn't quite grasped what it means for Jesus to be who he says he is. Maybe he still has it mixed up that to be the Messiah is to have power and status and glory. And in the final week of his life, beginning with riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, doing this foot washing, and culminating with his execution, Jesus shows us that real love and power aren't about control or domination, but by kneeling and washing and loving to the very end. Which brings us full circle to how this homily began. Because it's telling how Jesus wants this to be recognizable, what he says when he wants this to be recognizable immediately. That at the end of this story, Jesus tells us quite simply that this act ought to be the exact way people will be able to tell who we are and who we belong to. By this one thing. It's remarkable how short that list is. What Jesus' list is here and for people to identify his followers. And it's maybe even more remarkable what didn't make that list, what didn't make the cut there. He didn't say people will know who you are by how correct your theology is, or by the songs you sing or don't sing, or by your liturgy or your politics or any of that. There is one thing on the list: love. End of list. And it begs the question, how am I doing with that list? What are we Christians actually known for in the world? What perceptions of Christians live out there in the world? What image of Christianity do people carry around in their heads? When they see a church or a collar or a necklace or a t-shirt or whatever it might be, any sort of indicator that someone might be a person of faith, what assumptions come up? And is the first thing they assume about us, oh, they're the most loving people I know? Is the first thing they think, oh, they belong to Jesus? May it be so, friends. May it be so. Amen.